the Buckeye Leafcast with your host, Andy Evans, and special guest, Kevin Imes.
I had a friend of mine, she just bought a house, she had a housewarming party at 5 o'clock. I'm like, the game starts at 4:30. She's like, well, we're playing Army. And I said, I don't care who we're playing. The game starts at 4:30. I'll be there at 9, maybe. You're telling me that you and your wife are going to have a conversation about what kind of paint you want in your living room? So I'm not coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've gone and done it again. You've downloaded another edition of the Buckeye Leafcast. I'm your host, Andy Evans. I appreciate you joining me and my counterpart, special guest, making another appearance back on the Leafcast, folks. My good friend, and I know he's got to be a good friend of yours because when you hear his voice, you just melt like friggin' butter, folks. Welcome back to the show, the one and only Mr. Kevin Imes.
Good Sunday morning to you, Andy Evans. How you doing today, brother?
Oh, sir, let me tell you what. When it is a nice day outside here in the central Ohio area, and we are waking up to the sound of chirping birds, lovely sunshine, and the fact that Ohio State steamrolled their way to another impressive win, I'm feeling good, brother. I'm feeling good.
I'm feeling good, too. I had a nice full day of football yesterday. I love college football Saturday mornings. I love to get up. I love to watch the pregame stuff. I prefer the 3:30 to 7 o'clock kickoff, so I had a good day yesterday. I got to watch that team up north look like, I don't know,
Oh, my
a big
God.
pile of dung. It was pretty cool to watch.
I think a big pile of dung is putting it very kindly, sir.
I don't want to get too crazy about it because the last Saturday in November we got to go up there, so I don't want to get too crazy about it.
I know, dude, I feel you, and I'm the same way. When it comes to the game, I never rule those bastards out because, as we've seen,
right.
You and I, we grew up in that era, unfortunately, John Cooper era.
Cooper.
You know, the whole 2-10-1. But God, you know, after what we went through with Jim Tressel, and then of course Mr. Urban Meyer, only losing 2 times, one loss of which was not responsible for either coach, was of course
Correct.
After, you know, Jim Tressel was unfortunately stepped down and Mr. Luke Fickell took over for that 1 year. But that notwithstanding, it's always good to see Michigan lose, and lose badly, dude. God, man, they looked awful. But I tell you what, we'll get to that in a minute because I do want to talk a little bit of Big Ten with you, as well as the Buckeyes' upcoming game against the Nebraska Cornhuskers on Saturday the 28th. But right now, let's talk a little Miami of Ohio, Redhawk, and the 6th-ranked Buckeyes, dude. Final score, Ohio State 76-5. And Ohio State scored 76 unanswered points after the first 7.5 minutes of the game, falling behind to Miami, dude, 5-0. 5-0.
5-0. 5-0. How embarrassing was that? What a lethargic stop. I think I texted you about 5 minutes into the game yesterday and just said lethargic. I don't know what it was. Was it the fact that we were used to starting at noon and we had to wait too long? Was it the fact that we thought we could just roll our helmets out there and just steamroll them like we did? Was it the fact that the Miami defense was too much for them to handle for the first? I mean, come on. Well, I don't know what happened, but lethargic is the only way that I could give you how we started.
I think that all 3 of those are good points. This was their first late game of the year. The first 3 games of the year, they start at noon. And if you talk to any former football player or current football player, they will tell you that noon games are the best. They prefer to play in noon games because they get it out of the way, then they have the whole day to enjoy. They don't like sitting around and waiting to come out and play, especially when it comes to a night game. Now, when you're a fan, that's the best, right? Because you're like, oh my God.
Right. The night games are the best when you're a fan, but as a player, you're right. You got to get up and get going. You want to keep that same routine. You want to do the same thing every game day. You do the same thing every other day of the week, so why not keep it the same on game day Saturday? So I think the 3:30 start had something, 3:20, whatever it was, had something to do with it. But thank goodness, after about 5 or 6 minutes, we decided to show up and play ball, like you said, 76 unanswered.
Well, and I think that, your point, too, of, let's face it, this was Miami of Ohio. If the team was looking at Cincinnati as being little brother, they had to have been looking at them as, like, the little... I don't know, redheaded stepchild, the little,
engine that couldn't.
The little cousin, the little, third generation down the line cousin or something that they had to play. Yeah, so I'm sure that they probably felt they were probably a little thrown off because of the later start. It was Miami of Ohio, and they probably did think, we're just going to kind of walk out there. Miami's going to poop their pants, roll up in the corner, suck their thumb, and cry their way through the rest of the game. And I'm sure Miami was fired up, and you could tell the first 7.5 minutes of the game. They work their way down the field on the first drive. They go for it on fourth. They don't get it, but they pin Ohio State deep in their own territory. And then, of course, what happens? Miami defense causes Justin Fields to fumble in the end zone, gets knocked out of the end zone. It's a safety. And then... they work their way back down the field after that. Ohio State does stop them, but Miami gets a field goal. So within the first two drives of the game, Miami's up 7.5 minutes in, 5-0, and then that was it. That was all she wrote.
So that the defensive end came off the backside, the left side corner of Fields and beat Dobbins around the corner, and he went ahead and got that strip sack. But it seems like after that, and I give Ryan Day a lot of credit, it seems like after that moment, it seems like things changed a little, at least offensively. I know it took the defense a little bit longer, but the leadership of Ryan Day to have a rough start like that, and I know it's Miami, I get it, we should be able to roll them, but... You got 18, 19-year-old kids. They just got punched in the mouth a couple times.
Yep.
And Ryan Day and his leadership there at Ohio State found a way to get to them, turn them around, and just steamroll.
Yep, and you're absolutely right. That was a testament to Ryan Day. Now his 7th win as head coach. He's 7-0. Of course, 4th game as being the permanent head coach. But for him to respond... or to get his team to respond the way that they did. I mean, they could have folded up a little bit, and they could have kind of gone through the motions, and they could have still won this game, 42-12, or, maybe 38-16, or, something like that. But instead, they completely buckled down. Offense came alive. Defense really came alive. Not that the defense wasn't alive throughout the entire game, but it was really the offense that did look lethargic, as you did say in your text that you sent me early in the game. But yeah, they woke up. They just finally said, you know what? All right, okay, Miami of Ohio, we let you kind of feel like you were, part of the game, kind of patting that little, third cousin on the head that wants to play with all the big boys in the family reunion, softball game, and then says,
That's right.
okay, now it's time for the big boys to go ahead and play, and you can just go ahead and sit the bench and watch for the rest of the game. So that 76 points, Kevin, is now tied for 8th all time in Ohio State history as far as points scored in a single game, and the 71-point margin of victory is also the 8th highest margin of victory in OSU.
So give us some stats on that. What are those? Do you have any of those numbers? Do you have any of those numbers? Are they all John Cooper games against the Citadel?
No, it was more like old Francis Scullybud Smith.
Okay.
1938 games. No, actually, yeah, it's okay. So here's some stats for you. So the highest point total ever in Ohio State history, Kevin, came in 1916 when the Buckeyes beat Oberlin by a score of 128-0.
Boy, how bad was that game to watch?
Oh, my God.
That's a whole lot of running the football up between the tackles, right? You just went Jack Park on me. What's going on with you today?
Oh, my God. Yeah, that was when old John W. Wills was coaching the team, and they went 7-0 that year, Kevin, in 1916. Opened up the 1916 season with a 12-0 win over Ohio Wesleyan. Then the next weekend, welcomed in Oberlin and beat them 128-0. So that not only is the most points ever scored in a single game for the Buckeyes, but obviously the highest margin of victory. Number two, actually 2 games tied for the highest margins of victory, was 1904 when the Buckeyes posted an 80-0 win over the Miami Redhawks. Of course, I think
there you go.
They were called the Redskins then. That was when they were coached by E.R. Sweetland in 1904. And then there was another 80-point win they actually had, looks like it was about 12 years before, when they posted a rout in their 3rd year ever in existency, the Ohio State football program in 1892. Coached by Jack Ryder in his first season at OSU. It was their 3rd game of the year with a win over Marietta, 80-0. So those two.
Isn't that amazing? We talk about these schools that we used to play, and you think about these schools now, and one of them doesn't really have a football program anymore. The other one's known as the best small baseball school in Marietta.
Yeah.
In the Midwest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird, Ohio Wesleyan. Are you kidding me? Those are some odd schools to be playing.
Oh, how about when Ohio State opened up the 1896 season, Kevin, under first-year head coach Charles A. Hickey, and posted a 24-0 win on October 3rd against Ohio Medical.
Oh wow, that was a tough game.
And that was the first of 3 games against them that year. They played Ohio Medical 3 times in 1896. They also played Columbus Barracks that year and won 10-2.
Oh, they beat the what are those guys called on the COTC or the ROTC guys? That's who they beat.
They played the ROTC in 1896. Oh yeah, some of these games in the first several years of OSU football, to see the teams that they played are just hilarious. I mean, Denison, Oberlin, Western Reserve, Otterbein, Wittenberg. They're playing all of these teams that are now Division III, or like you said, don't even have football programs anymore. And a lot of the games they lost too. I mean, Oberlin kicked Ohio State's ass several years in the early days. I mean, Oberlin kicked Ohio State's ass, except for that 128-0 win in 1960.
Yeah, they were paying them back that day.
Yeah, seriously. But so 2 more games tied for the 4th highest margin of victory in Ohio State history. 1934, a 76-point win over Western Reserve, and then in 2013. Urban's 2nd year as head coach, they put a 76-point win over Florida A&M. Final score that day, Kevin, do you remember?
I don't remember that one.
76-0.
That's nice. I like to see the big 0 there. I like that a lot.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? And then in 1933, they posted the 6th highest margin of victory with a 75-point win over Virginia to open up the 1933 season. And then the 7th highest margin of victory, 1996. Kevin, do you remember?
That's the John Cooper game.
John Cooper game. And there were actually 2 games that year. He opened up the 1996 season with 2 straight 70-point games. Do you remember those 2 games?
I don't. If I thought about it, I probably could, but I don't remember.
Okay, that's all right. I mean, that's 23 years ago. So, and
I was having a good old time down at Marshall University in 1996. So I doubt that I watched very much Ohio State football that year, but I kind of remember. Give it to me.
Opened up the year 1996 with a 70-7 win over Rice.
Okay.
And then followed it up the next weekend with their 7th highest margin of victory ever in school history with a 72-zip drubbing of the Pittsburgh Panthers.
Okay. I remember we played the Panthers. Well, we played them like 4 or 5 years in a row.
I know we played them in 95 and 96, and we beat them over there in 95. The final score was like 35. Let me go look this up, but I believe it was like 35-14. Let me see here. Oh no, I'm sorry. 1995 against Pitt. You know what? God, now see, here's your memory at work, dude. I'm looking back now. You're absolutely right. 1993, third game of the year at Pitt. Final score, Ohio State 63, Panthers 28.
Okay.
1994, third game of the season, Pitt at home. Final score, OSU 27-3. 95 went back over to Pitt, beat them up 54-14, and then 96. I believe that's probably the last time we've ever played Pitt was in 96, and beat them at home 72-0. So yesterday's game.
I think that 95 game, Andy. That 95 game. Look this one up. I think that 95 game was Terry Glenn's.
I'm gonna look it up right now because yes, I believe
that was Joe Germain, right?
No, that would have been Bobby Hoyne.
That was Bobby Hoyne in 95?
Yeah. So, let's see. Pass receptions in a game. Terry Glenn. Where the hell is he at? Huh. He only had 9 catches in that game.
Right, but I think 5 or 6 of them were touchdowns, and I think he had like 280 yards.
Let's see.
I think.
Pass. Where's reception yards? Pass reception yards. Okay. Pass reception yards in a game. So here you go. To this day, Kevin, 1995 at Pitt, still to this day, Terry Glenn holds the record for single receiving yards in a game off of
260?
9 catches, 253 yards.
There you go, brother.
Wow, good memory on that one, Home Slice. Good memory, bro.
I remember watching. I think I know where I was. I don't know if you remember this name, but I bet you do. The Dragon, Doug McKnight. Do you know that name?
No, that doesn't sound familiar.
He went to college at Rio Grande with your dad.
Oh God.
They were good friends.
Oh God.
And he and I ended up being pretty good friends there for a while. And I remember sitting in his basement. He's a big Pittsburgh fan. I remember sitting in his basement watching that game with him.
Wow.
That's why I remember.
Get out of here.
So there you go.
Wow. Dude, isn't it crazy some of the things you remember about back in the day? You know?
Yeah, and I with all the fun recreational things I was putting in my body at that time, I can't believe I remember anything, to tell you the truth.
Oh, you and me both, sir. Hey, those were the good old days. Those were the good old days. But, well, speaking of the good old days, there are some kids probably growing up that are, maybe they're our age now, what we were then, late teens, early 20s. This was kind of somewhat of a historic game to watch. It wasn't, honestly, a lot of fun after a while. I mean, let's face it, when you start watching a beatdown, to me, and you're probably going to disagree, but to me, you start watching a beatdown and you start, moving on to different things. Like, you'll have the TV on in the background, as I did the entire game. Did not turn the channel, don't get me wrong, but you kind of start, like I started cooking dinner, and I started, doing some other things, but the TV was always on, and of course, you stop and pause and kind of watch for a few minutes. But when you get to that drubbing point, you kind of start half-heartedly watching, but still, is this a game? What kind of game was this for you? Not just necessarily from like a record standpoint or a personal standpoint, but just in this season right now, as far as where we're at with Ryan Day and the fact that this team has come out and done what they've done in the first 4 games, what kind of game was this for you?
I tell you what, I loved after the first 5 minutes, I got really excited, got fired up, started screaming at the TV positively, not negatively. I think it was kind of a statement game, a lot like a couple other Big Ten teams yesterday made, and we'll get to that. But it was kind of a statement game for Ryan Day, for him to pull the team to adversity. And once again, I know that it's Miami, but you get a safety on the second play, second offensive play of the game. We get nailed with a safety. Then we kick the ball off to them, and they drive back down the field. We do hold them to 3, but still. So there's some adversity there. I know it's not Penn State adversity, but it's adversity. I'd like to see the kids, the guys, the team come together. I like to see Chase Young coming off the corner and strip sack after strip sack. You couldn't even see Chase Young. He was so fast.
Oh, my God.
I texted you yesterday about 92. I love to see him in there. He looks like a Sunday player to me.
Haskell Garrett.
Yes, I love him. The defensive line, it looks amazing to me. Our secondary with a Kudo, top 10 pick most likely. So I like to see it. Now, I, like you, when it gets to be about 53-5 at one point, you know what I do? I put on Mr. Keels, and I listen to it on the radio.
Yeah.
I'll do some other things, and I'll continue to take notes, but I'll do some other things, maybe watch a different game. But it's always going to be on. But I think it was a pretty good statement to let everybody know that, hey, even though it's the 4th game of the season, even though it's Miami, I think it's nice to see the guys get together and go ahead and roll like they did.
Here's the kind of statement game, though, that this was, Kevin, that some of the second and third stringers actually led Ohio State in certain categories yesterday. So, I mean, that was the kind of game this was, is that by halftime, Justin Fields had accounted for 6 touchdowns, 4 through the air, 2 on the ground, didn't even play the second half, and still ended up going 14-21 passing, 223 yards, the 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, also toted the ball 9 times, 36 yards, 2 more scores on the ground.
How great is it to see him? I love to see him in the pocket making plays.
Yeah.
I love to see him when the pocket breaks down, get outside of the pocket making plays. He doesn't have to run the ball all the time. I remember watching, real quick, I know that you know this stat, but I'm going to throw it out there. Fields is off to an unbelievable start, right? He's had more TDs responsible for than J.T. Barrett the first 4 games and Dwayne Haskins the first 4 games.
Wow.
So, yes. So when we watched J.T., it was almost like he was a run-first guy. When we watch Haskins, of course, he was a pass-first guy. But what we've got with Mr. Fields is he can drop back, and if he needs to run for 10 yards to get a first down, he can do it. But if he needs to throw the ball 45 yards down the field, my God, can he swing it.
I remember after this year's spring game, someone asked KJ Hill who threw the ball harder, Dwayne or Justin Fields, and he said, he said it wasn't even close, that Justin Fields rips the ball a lot harder than Dwayne. Now, Dwayne had touch, and I'm not saying Fields doesn't. I think Haskins definitely a better passer, JT a better runner. However, Fields does have that perfect blend of the two. You know what I'm saying? And that in itself may make him a deadlier quarterback than either JT or Dwayne. Now, I'm not so sure that Justin will necessarily break Dwayne's single-season passing records. He's sure as hell off to a damn good start so far. He's off to a damn good start so far. We'll see what happens now once they really get into the meat of the Big Ten. They've obviously already had their first Big Ten game of the year last weekend against Indiana, in which they drubbed them. But now it's time for the Big Ten. Non-conference games are done. Big Ten's coming up. We'll see what Justin Fields can do. But you're right, dude. Fields is he's impressed me a lot. I was skeptical coming into this year. I understand that.
You were very skeptical.
I understand that he was the second overall rated player in the country after his senior year in high school. And not just the second overall rated quarterback, the second overall rated player, period. Athlete, bar none. Second rated overall dude in his recruiting class. But I was still skeptical because I'm like, well, let's hold off. Let's take a deep breath. Dude's coming in here, learning a whole new offense. He's in a little bit different of a scheme. He's in a whole
year.
Yeah, underneath a new coach. Fortunately for Fields, pretty much the same coaching staff offensively, with the exception of Mike Yurcich. But still, new setting, new town, new city, new friends, new teammates, the whole nine. That's a lot for a 19, 20-year-old kid to acclimate, and just ask for him to step right in and just be magical and just, go nuts. And so far, that's pretty much what he's done. I mean, I'm definitely impressed.
I'm extremely impressed as well. Like you said, 19 or 20. I don't know his exact birthday, but he's 19 or 20. He's a big kid. He's 6'3", 223, 225. He's still young. We still got a lot to go. He's completing 70% of his passes, Andy.
Dude.
Come on. He's got almost 700 yards passing this season. He's got 9 touchdowns passing. That doesn't count. What does he have? 6 rushing?
Yeah, let me think here. I thought I saw where he had 19 touchdowns responsible for after that. You know what? Go ahead, keep talking. I'm going to look that up here and see.
Okay. No, he's a big kid. We've both seen him in interviews. You've talked to him, right? You've talked to him before. He's a good kid. He seems like he's a smart kid. He's got his head in the right place. I love to see him play. I don't mean any disrespect when I call him kid. I just say that. But Justin Fields is an unbelievable athlete, and he seems like he's a very, very well-rounded individual, and I like watching him play. I really do. Yeah,
so far he's absolutely impressed me. Yeah, he has. He's and yes, I have seen him live and in person after the spring game, up close. He's definitely, I mean, he's a good sized kid, he's every bit of 6'2", 6'3", 220. What you were talking about as far as his touchdowns responsible for, he had 9 passing touchdowns through the first 3 games, as well as 4 on the ground. So 13 plus another 6, 19 touchdowns responsible for.
There you go.
So
he's well on his way to, what is it, 57? What's the record?
Oh God, you asked me too fast, man. Well, didn't Dwayne just set it last year?
He broke it. Yeah, he broke Breeze's record last year.
Oh, that sounds terrible. I can't even remember last year, let alone yesterday. Aside from this game, but another stat to quickly look up. But and it wasn't just monumental in the sense for Justin Fields in continuing to do what he was able to do. But once again, there were several second, third, fourth stringers that got into this game, that got stats, that got firsts. They got their names now etched in the lore of Buckeye history. Chris Chuganov, dude, with his first touchdown pass ever as a Buckeye. In fact, he had 2 yesterday. Went 6 of 7 through the air, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns. Gunnar Hoke also now in the record books as far as stats are concerned. I mean, well, of course, regardless of stats, but having a touchdown pass, he was 2 of 2 yesterday, 65 yards, including a 60-yard pass, which basically was all true freshman Jameson Williams, which was his first touchdown catch ever as a Buckeye. 60-yard rip and run between Hoke and Jameson Williams. Steel Chambers, Kevin, actually led Ohio State in rushing yesterday. He's Ohio State's fourth string running back. He's the fourth guy to come in, and it was Steel Chambers who led the Buckeyes yesterday with 63 yards, 8 carries, had his first touchdown ever. JK, let's talk a little bit about him just at least briefly. I mean, 8 carries, 52 yards and a score, and got the Buckeyes rolling, which you texted me right after that touchdown. What was it, that 26-yard touchdown run he had there?
Yes, I think there was 5 minutes left in the quarter when he scored that.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay, yeah. So, finally got the offense going. Master Teague actually led the team in carries with 11, only had 34 yards, but hell, his day was done after like the third quarter, and that's when they started putting.
Right, they're two totally different running backs, right? Yeah, Master Teague is which every time they say that name, it gives a reference to 1990s rap, and I can't get it out of my head. But anyway, I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Master P.
It's like trying to play in the NBA or something. But anyway, I digress. Two totally different running backs, right? You got Dobbins, who's a slasher. He breaks off tackle and he goes 53 yards, whatever it was. Then you get Master Teague in there. You completely switch it up, and he's just running people over.
Yeah.
He puts his foot down, puts his shoulder down, and you better get out of the way.
Well, I tell you what.
Nice to see that, a little salt and pepper going on there.
Not like J.K. can't, give a stiff arm or two as well.
He can. Yes, he can. Yes, he can.
I think Ohio State, obviously, Ryan Day, everybody knew that this was going to be the kind of game where, you know what, fellas? It's the fourth game of the year. For some of you that may be redshirting, we're going to try and get you in on the field and get you playing time the last game possible, because after this, you're probably not going to see the field. And unfortunately, for a guy like Steel Chambers, that's probably why he got as much PT as he did in getting 8 carries for 63 yards.
Let's not. I mean, if this was the second game of the season, I don't think we would have seen those guys in there as early. I think Ryan Day he's thinking to himself, now we start with the Big Ten. We got a big game next week with Nebraska, 2 weeks in Nebraska. There's a lot. It is next week. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think what he was saying is, I'm going to get these guys out. And another interesting point that I think Lauren Imes pointed out yesterday, Ryan Day doesn't tell the players whether or not they're going to redshirt or not, because he doesn't want them to lose focus. I like that.
I heard
like that
too.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Was very interesting to me that's something that he did. But anyway, let's just be honest. If it was the second game of the season, those guys wouldn't have seen that much playing time. But,
second game of the season was Cincinnati, and when they posted a 42-0 shutout. So we did see some of those guys.
Played into the fourth quarter against that game.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying we wouldn't have seen those guys as much. Fields was on the field for each quarter in the Cincinnati game. So, you're not looking at the fourth-string running back. But I think that they're saying, let's get out of here. It's 70 to whatever it was at halftime. It was I forget the halftime score. I wrote it down. But anyway, let's get most of the starters out. Let's keep everybody healthy. Let's let these kids play that probably aren't going to see the field the rest of the season, like you said. And let's move forward. Let's get ready for Nebraska.
So, Chris Olave, dude, targeted 3 times, caught all 3 balls, 30 yards, 2 of them for touchdowns, just doing Chris Olave type stuff. This is almost becoming routine now with Chris Olave. This is crazy. I mean, here's a kid, dude, that we didn't even really know a whole lot about. I mean, we knew, okay, yeah, there's a name, he's a freshman. But until really, I remember the first time seeing him last year against Michigan State up there. And I thought, oh, hey, that Chris Olave kid, that 3-star wide receiver from California, who I was kind of skeptical on why they took him in the first place. Now it's pretty apparent as to why they took him. I mean, dude is just balling out.
Yeah, what kind of speed does he have?
He's, that's the thing, is that he's got such great moves, hip movement, head turning ability to get the cornerback thinking he's going one way and just cuts another. He seems to be just so quick, but I don't know if we've really seen his overall speed, because he's just constantly catching balls where he's either going out of bounds or he's catching them in the end zone. So I don't know about.
What's he doing on special teams, though? What's going on with him on special teams? Talk about that.
Dude, yeah. I mean, 2 blocked punts now. One last year against the smelly rodents that resulted in a touchdown, and then does it again against Indiana last weekend. Yeah, that resulted in a safety.
There's his speed. That's his speed, coming off the corner like that.
Now that's
it's
a good
not easy
point.
to block a punt. If it was easy to block a punt, we'd see him all the time. We don't see him. That's where I was trying to bring up his speed. His speed, the speed to me, like you said, he's out of California, still a young kid, hell of an athlete, great hands, Looks like he's going to be a Sunday player. They were calling us cornerback U yesterday. It looks like we're turning into wide receiver U now.
Yeah, with guys like Ted Ginn and Michael Thomas, tearing it up in the NFL.
Thomas, good God.
Yeah, just a beast. Well, here's another kid that might get his shot on Sundays, but we still got him for the next 2.5 years, Kevin, and that's true freshman out of Texas, Garrett Wilson. Led the team yesterday, 4 catches, 54 yards, did not lead the team in yards. That actually went to KJ Hill, who had 78 yards receiving, and then Jamison Williams actually finished second with 74 yards, but Garrett Wilson probably had the most insane touchdown catch, Kevin. We've seen a ton of them over the years. We were just talking about Terry Glenn earlier, and we have witnessed a slew of great receivers. Ted Ginn, Michael Thomas, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. David Boston, Chris Carter. I mean, you and I have seen these guys play. I'm not sure if I've ever seen a touchdown grab like I saw yesterday out of the true freshman from Texas, number 5, Garrett Wilson.
You got Moss. It wasn't there.
What?
That was an unbelievable catch. Yeah, it wasn't there. Wasn't there at all.
That may go down as one of the most acrobatic catches that could happen to any team for the rest of the friggin' season. And Randy Moss didn't have it on his little blurb there on the Sunday countdown?
Didn't have it, man. One of the reasons why I got up, Moss, my favorite receiver of all time, I wanted to see him call it out because it was an unbelievable catch. He kept his eye on the ball. You could see his eyes were open the whole time. It was one of the most acrobatic catches I've ever seen.
That's crazy, man. I mean, that could be the next breakout first-round wide receiver that the Buckeyes produce in the NFL. And he's only
for 2 more years.
Dude, he's only 4 games into his OSU career as a true freshman.
Right.
Just unbelievable. But yeah, not taking anything away either from Ben Victor. He's had a solid year. He had an insane catch to tippy-toe the back of the end zone there.
High-pointed the ball.
Fields threw it a little high, but he high-pointed the ball, had a defender in his face, still hauled in the catch, and tippy-toed the back of the end zone for the score. Oh, man, that was just unbelievable. The depth, when do you remember, dude, OSU having this kind of depth at the wide receiver position?
Never. We never have. Come on. We put 4 receivers on the field at any given time that can play on Sundays, right? Do we even have a tight end, for Christ's sake? I mean, we don't even... It used to be a thing. Now it's not a thing anymore.
Well, there's a kid by the name of Jeremy Ruckert who is probably got NFL written all over him. But I get your point. I know. Jeremy Ruckert, 1 catch yesterday, 24 yards. Haven't seen a whole lot of him after that Florida Atlantic game, but he still had a nice little catch yesterday. Rashad Berry, a 16-yard catch, which was kind of on a field scramble. And then, Jake Houseman had a catch for 9 yards. And technically the starter, Luke Farrell, nothing. Right. So to your point, man, the Buckeyes definitely it's more of a wide receiver heavy offense. They obviously want to throw the tight end in there at times to keep the defenses honest. Dude, we were talking a little bit yesterday about KJ Hill and Austin Mack. And Austin Mack is a hell of a wide receiver who just seems to be getting left behind right now in this offense. And I'm kind of disappointed with it because I love me some Austin Mack.
I know you do. I like Austin Mack as well. He's another one I think that's going to play on Sundays. But yesterday you pointed out that when we were texting each other that he was going Fields was going strong to Olave. But it seemed to me yesterday he really moved the ball around to these different guys, and we got to see him a little bit. I know that the receptions weren't very high, but their yards were, and it seemed like each of them got a nice touchdown. Olave with 2, KJ Hill with 1. You know what I mean? So it's good to see him spreading the ball around and let's make everybody happy. We got all these toys. Why are we leaving them in the closet? Let's play with them a little.
Absolutely. Well, interesting point, dude. Fields only had 4 touchdown passes, but as we just said a second ago, Chugunov had 2, Hoke had 1, 7 different touchdown passes thrown to 7. Actually, wait, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 7 different touchdown passes thrown to 6 different guys because Olave had 2. But those 7 touchdown passes, Kevin, now tied for first all time in Ohio State history as a team in touchdown passes thrown. So, yeah, that game's, it set all kinds of records, had a bunch of guys seeing firsts. And shit, dude, we haven't even talked about the defense yet, man.
Can we just let's just talk. There's one player I want to talk about on the defensive side of the ball. We all know who it is.
You just touched on his name earlier. And, of course, that's Chase Young because he's the guy that everybody's talking about. I mean, dude, okay, 3 tackles, right? 3 tackles. 2 of them, however, were sacks. Both of them were strip sacks that resulted in turnovers. And is he not just playing his way into a first-round pick, but playing his way into the top?
Playing his way into the first overall.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. Not just the first-round pick, but the top overall pick. I mean, it's nuts, man, what this dude's doing. He's already got, Kevin, 7 sacks this year.
7 sacks.
7!
Yep. I'm telling you, Andy Evans, I'm telling you right now, he is going to be the first pick in the draft. He's an unbelievable talent. We're going to have 2 years back-to-back where we get a number 1 player taken. This is the defense right now. I texted you this 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago yesterday, I texted you and I said, the Silver Bullets may be back.
I don't think there's any doubt that the Silver Bullets are back. And I mean, God, what an amazing turnaround Greg Madison, Al Washington, and Jeff Hafley have had on this team, dude. I mean, I'm just, after last year, and, I've had discussions with other people about what happened with the defense last year. And quite frankly, dude, I think Greg Schiano didn't give 2 shits about being the defensive coordinator at Ohio State last year. He was simply going through the motions. He wanted out. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was an NFL head coach of an NFL team, for Christ's sakes. Now, all of a sudden, I don't care if it's Ohio State or not. He's all of a sudden he's not even the head coach. He's the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. And he's probably like, dude, this sucks. I want out. I hate this. My life blows. I used to be an NFL head coach, for Christ's sakes. Now I'm a friggin' defensive coordinator back in college. I think he went through the motions. I think you could tell just in the players' attitudes. And Greg Madison, Al Washington, Jeff Hafley have come in here and breathed totally new life into this defensive unit and their attitude. And I think the fact that they have some depth, especially on the defensive line, I mean, the amount of guys that were out yesterday, dude, and their defensive line, of course, thanks to Chase Young primarily, but still looked great. I mean, Jayshon Cornell had a good game, 4 tackles yesterday, 1 for loss. I mean, hell, Alex Williams, true freshman from Pickerington right here in our backyard, brother, he had 4 tackles in yesterday's game. Your boy Haskell Garrett, 4 tackles, 1.5 for loss. Devon Hamilton, 3 tackles, 2 for loss. I mean, the defensive line is just unbelievably loaded, and they didn't have Tyreek Smith. They didn't have B.B. Landers. They didn't have Jonathan Cooper. A couple of fifth-year guys, as well as a stud true sophomore that didn't even play, and their defensive line is still going nuts like they are.
What do we got? We probably have 8 defensive linemen that we can work in. It's nice to keep them fresh. The depth is unbelievable. We talked about the wide receiver depth earlier. Now we're talking about the defensive line depth, which is very, very impressive. So we're kicking on all cylinders. I would like to see one player that I've liked the last couple years. He's a captain, number 32, right? I think he's 32.
Tough Borland.
I'd like to see him be a little bit more active, but now we're just picking things out just to pick them out.
Yeah, at this point, when you're kind of picking on your junior captain about how he needs to pick up his game, at this point in the season, that's kind of crazy that you need to make a statement like that.
Right.
But quite frankly, Tough Borland, aside from that interception he had in the second game against Cincinnati,
very quiet.
Yeah, Tough Borland has been very quiet this year. I mean, 2 tackles yesterday, 1 solo. Pete Werner, 1 total tackle yesterday, and it was an assisted tackle. Now, granted, once again, yesterday kind of an anomaly from a stat standpoint because so many guys were being taken off the field. Hell, even throughout the second quarter, I saw guys like Taraja Mitchell in there, and Alex Williams. These backup guys. Hell, Dallas Gant, dude, led the team yesterday in tackles. He had 5 tackles, 1.5 sacks. So that's crazy. Dallas Gant, backup linebacker, led the team. So that just kind of tells you the amount of depth that they have, and they were able to play so many backups yesterday so soon that a lot of the starter stats suffered just because they really didn't. They weren't on the field.
They played the half of football. They played a half, and actually they played about a quarter and 5 minutes because the first 10 minutes of that football game. I know they were out there on the field, but there wasn't too much action going on.
Yeah, exactly. So, this was definitely a statement game, and, dude, given what we're seeing now out of the Big Ten and certain teams in the Big Ten, you had talked earlier in the podcast about the rodents, and let's talk about them for a minute. Are we surprised that we saw them get blasted by Wisconsin yesterday? I mean, I understand it was a road game, but what we've seen out of Michigan so far this year, I mean, there were people out there, dude, that had them winning the Big Ten East. Now I'm not even so sure that they're going to escape with less than 3 or 4 losses over this season.
I don't understand what it is about him. What it is about Harbaugh that he just can't figure out how to recruit or how to, not even recruit because he's got talent, how to develop these players up there. To me, it's almost scary. I am very surprised that they got handled the way that they did. I don't know if it was more of a statement for that running back, Jonathan Taylor, is that his name?
Yep.
Number 23, I think.
Yep.
I don't know if that was a statement, if that was coming out that he's going to win the Heisman. Or if Michigan's just that bad. They couldn't even bring him down, Andy Evans. I saw 3 plays yesterday in that football game where all 11 defensive players were on a pile trying to bring this kid down, and they couldn't bring him down. It's got to be embarrassing for Michigan. It's got to be embarrassing for Harbaugh. I saw a thing this morning that had bag of potato chips, extra salty tears of Michigan fans. I mean, I don't know what it is. Wisconsin is a good program, Wisconsin's a great football program. They're very, very good this year. But do you think that Ryan Day and the Ohio State University Buckeyes would go up to Wisconsin and get beat down like that? It would never happen.
No.
I don't understand what's going on in Ann Arbor.
I'll be honest with you, man. Call me crazy, because I love seeing Ohio State beat Michigan every year. And there's a part of me that, not a part of me, there's all of me that loves seeing Michigan get embarrassed the way they are. I'm going to take that back. There's not all of me, because there is a small part of me, dude, that is actually, call me crazy, dude, call me crazy. There's a small part of me that's actually starting to feel sorry for Michigan.
Oh, no.
And
Stop.
Starting to get disappointed in Michigan. I'm sorry, but for a rivalry to exist, there needs to be some back and forth. And right now, I mean, some of these kids growing up, there's no fucking rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan. There's not.
No.
Because they've seen Ohio State kick Michigan's ass for the last 17 years.
Nonstop.
And for there to be a rivalry, there needs to be some back and forth, and there just isn't that. I was thinking, dude, it could finally happen this year. It's up there, new head coach, Ryan Day. But at this point, I will be surprised at this point if Ohio State loses to Michigan, unless I see something different out of Michigan moving forward after that Wisconsin game. I could understand you getting beat by Wisconsin in their house, but to get drubbed like that when you were the odds-on favorite, I mean, they were like an overwhelming favorite to win the East Division and finally beat Ohio State and go play for a Big Ten championship. And
well, not only that, they were talking about them playing in the Big Four.
Right.
In the playoffs at the end. I mean, come on. So Michigan, under Harbaugh since 2015, is 1-6 on the road against ranked opponents. That's not a good program. And like you said, I don't want to lose on the last Saturday in November at all, ever. But you know what? They've got to give us something. Like you said, there's a whole generation of Buckeye fans growing up with, why is Michigan our rival?
Yeah.
Why isn't Michigan State our rival?
Why isn't Wisconsin? Why isn't Penn State?
Why isn't Purdue?
Yeah.
Purdue has a better record against us than
Michigan
Harbaugh does.
I know. That is nuts. So it is. It's really disappointing because I thought that Jim Harbaugh was going to be the answer for Michigan, and kind of at first it seemed that way. 2015, they were kind of finally back after Brady Hoke, ran them into the ground after they had, quite frankly, a very good 2011 season. The next 3 years after that, Michigan was kind of garbage. But you know what? We pretty much got better games from Brady Hoke than we did Jim Harbaugh. I mean, think about it. There's really been one game that Ohio State got a contest from Jim Harbaugh, and that very well could go down as one of the greatest Ohio State-Michigan games I've ever seen. Double overtime win in the shoe.
2002. Wasn't that the 42-39 game?
That was 06.
Okay.
It's funny about 06. I look back on that game and that season, and that game in and of itself at the time was the best Ohio State-Michigan game I've ever seen. However, hindsight being 2020, you look back and then what happened after that 06 game, and both Ohio State and Michigan got absolutely crushed in their bowl games, right? Michigan got rolled by USC in the Rose Bowl, and Ohio State obviously got pounded by Urban Meyer-led Florida team in the national championship. So I look back at that 06 game, and as awesome as it was, I'm kind of like, it didn't lead to anything after that. Like, everything...
Right, well, that was Teddy Ginn's broken ankle, right?
Yep. Supposed broken ankle, but...
First play of the game.
Yeah.
A little bit of celebration in the end zone. Yeah, I remember that,
Returns the goddamn opening kickoff all the way for a touchdown, and then Ohio State completely fell apart after that. But that
was embarrassing.
Yeah, I know. God. But at any rate, I guess I don't know, man. Looking at Michigan, I'm just like... I really am disappointed. I'm disappointed because, like you said, give us something. Give us some sort of challenge here, Michigan. And there have been some challenging games since Jim Tressel took over in 2001. And even after that now in the Jim Harbaugh era. But I just, aside from one game in 2016, Jim Harbaugh has completely crapped the bed when it comes to not just the Ohio State game, dude, but all of his games. I mean, he's gotten, like, against Michigan State and Ohio State, he's got one win, and that was against Michigan State. And what was that? 2016, I think, is when he finally got a win over them. But, I mean, he's bad when it comes to being under pressure. And I think you made a comment about that yesterday, that he's just not a good coach when it comes to the pressure.
And when you think about his past, he was pretty good under pressure at Stanford. They beat USC for the first time in, 14 or 16 years when he was there.
That's what I don't get. You know what I know what it is? I think because when he was at, what was it, San Diego or San Diego State, and he turned them around and they became a decent, like, whoa, what's with this San Diego State team all of a sudden?
Right.
And then, at Stanford, when he turned them around, and they were beating USC and Oregon, and like, holy crap, Stanford, man, they're for real.
Right.
I think it was because he knew that he didn't have anything to lose at those schools, and he didn't care. But now
there's so much pressure at Michigan. It's like coaching at Ohio State. It's like coaching at Alabama. It's like coaching at Oklahoma. There's so much pressure, and he, for some reason, cannot fight his way out of a wet paper bag when there's pressure. I don't get it.
I know. I don't get it either. I mean, I think that it's just that. The pressure for him is too great being at his former school, and he wants to do so well that the pressure just is too much for him. And
gotta be what it is. Be what it is.
Yeah,
he was deemed as the savior, and he just can't. And he's getting talent. He's getting number 2, number 3 recruiting class. I think last year it was 5, but he's up there. He's got the talent. He just can't develop it. I don't know. Man.
I think it's going to be interesting to see what Michigan does after this, because, dude, they don't exactly have the easiest schedule remaining.
Nope.
I mean, so they are at home against Rutgers next weekend, which, you know what, they'll probably win that game by like 10 points.
Hold on. They're not that bad. When you used to say Rutgers in the past, you're like, Rutgers. But now...
Does Chris Ash finally, after what, like 3 seasons? I think this is his 4th year there. Does he finally have them turned around? A little bit? A little bit?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Well, small state of New Jersey, talent-rich beyond your wildest dreams. Maryland's right there. I mean, come on. He's got a great recruiting area. He should be able to turn that shit around.
Yeah, you would think, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, at home against Rutgers, and you're saying, hey, don't think of that as a layup. So...
Right, don't sleep on Rutgers.
Don't sleep on Rutgers. Then guess what? The weekend after that, they stay home, but it's against Iowa, who's ranked.
Great football team.
And then they...
punch you in the mouth, run the ball a whole bunch. They play solid defense.
Yeah, dude. You obviously don't sleep on Iowa either. Then they've got they got 2 straight road games at Illinois.
Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois.
Lovie Smith still there?
Yeah, he's still there. He was on the sidelines last night in their loss at home to Nebraska, which was actually a really good game.
That was a close game. Was it 38-35 or something?
I think
like that?
42-38 was the final score.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then after at Illinois, Michigan's at Penn State. Then the weekend after they travel to Penn State, they do come back home. However, it's against Notre Dame.
Oh, gosh.
And then they travel to Maryland, which we all kind of thought Maryland was something until they get beat against Temple. So I don't know, that Maryland game could be interesting. Then they take a week.
You and I and my 2 dogs could beat Temple. Come on.
Yeah. You would, I mean, give me a break, Maryland. You shred Syracuse and then turn around and lose to Temple? I mean...
Syracuse could be one of the worst football programs in the nation.
Well, at the time they were ranked, but they're probably much like Michigan, where people were giving them a lot more credit than they deserved.
Well, they give them credit because of how they play Clemson, but, obviously that doesn't work out now. I get they play them tough, but Jesus, they're just... Syracuse is a bad football team.
Well, I guess time will tell how bad they end up being this year, but you're right.
That's right.
So then after traveling to College Park to take on the Terrapins on November 2nd, they take a week off, then they come home for Sparty on the 16th of November. No. Then they travel to Indiana, and then, of course, they come home for the game to conclude the regular season. So
they really only have 2 layups left.
Yeah.
They got Illinois and Maryland.
Well, Indiana might be
game,
a layup.
I'm sorry, I missed Indiana. I'm sorry. So they got 3 layups left. But every other game, Iowa, Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan State, and then the Buckeyes come to town?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Michigan. Are you going to go to a bowl game? You could barely beat Army at home. I'm not. You couldn't beat Army at home without using overtime. Come on.
Hey, you know what, though? I think our Army should be given a little more credit, though, than they're due. You know, Army was a good football team last year. They went 11-2, won their bowl game, and they went 10-3 the year before. So I think maybe we should give Army a little bit more credit. I get it. You think of Army kind of like what you were just talking about with Rutgers. You think kind of the same thing with Army. But Army the last couple of seasons, man, it's not been a bad football team. I mean, we'll see what happens with them as the rest of this year plays out. But I think Michigan should be given a tiny little bit of credit. But then again, after getting drubbed by Wisconsin, that credit kind of dissipated.
No, listen. Hold on a second. I get it. It's Army. I love what they do for our country. There's not a bigger sacrifice than to defend your country. I get all that. But they play. I just pulled up their schedule. Rice, Morgan State, Directional Kentucky, San Jose State, Georgia State, program that's just been around for how many years now? Tulane.
Hey, Tulane just had that crazy game against Houston.
Whatever, Houston, come on. But, I mean, UMass, Air Force, Hawaii. These are, I don't even know what these are. Are these schools? Is that a school? Is VMI football? They play football at VMI, really? I didn't know that. You know, they got the Army-Navy game at the end of the season.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like the greatest schedule. I'll give you that.
Come on. They go up to Ann Arbor and just punch them in the freaking mouth the whole game. And the only reason why they really lost that game, Army, was because they didn't have a kicker.
Yeah.
That's it.
Army probably should have won that football game had their kicker not been terrible. Well, they bring him out for the first ever attempt of his career from like 50 yards. And it's like,
in front of 110,000 screaming, crying Michigan fans. Right? I mean, come on. The poor kid. I was watching the game with my wife. I looked at her and I said, there is no way this kid's going to make this.
No.
There's no way.
Yeah, I think everybody knew that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, God, are you serious? This is the first ever kick in this kid's career? It's in the big house, and it's from like 50 yards? Yeah, no. Yeah, forget it.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, what else we got, Andy Evans?
Now we get ready for Nebraska, dude. What do you think? Cornhuskers in Lincoln. Huskers are 3-1, but they have not exactly looked all that great. I mean, they had an interesting game against the Illini last night, in which they did win against the Fighting Lovey Smiths, 42-38. They didn't look all that great at home to open the season against South Alabama. They did end up winning by 2 touchdowns, and then they had a nice lead against Colorado, and then pooped it away and ended up losing in overtime to the Buffaloes. Granted, in Boulder, but nonetheless, 3-1. Nebraska, if you remember last year's game, the Cornhuskers did give the Buckeyes an interesting one in which Ohio State ended up holding off the Cornhuskers for a 35-30 win. Now, in the past, it seems like whenever Nebraska's supposed to be good and they're ranked, Ohio State trounces all over them. And then when Nebraska's not so good and Ohio State should roll them, they actually have a close game with them. So, in fact, though, Nebraska has one win, Kevin, over Ohio State in the history of the two teams playing, and that was 2011 when Ohio State built a huge lead against the Cornhuskers in Lincoln, and then Braxton Miller got hurt. Joe Boserman came in, and we all know how that game ended up, and the Buckeyes ended up losing for their only loss ever to Nebraska, and I believe the final score was like 34-27 or something. So, I don't know. What do you think here out of Scott Frost and the boys?
Right, okay, so we're going to Lincoln. It's a 7:30 game.
Yep.
So what is it, 6:30 there? 49-17. I mean, let's give Fields 5 more touchdowns accountable for on his way to 50. It's not going to be good. Nebraska's not anything that Illinois put 38 up on them yesterday. They scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. They scored 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. You open the game up with 2. You open the second half out with 2. I mean, come on. They're not going to be much of a test for us at all. In fact, I'd be upset if we didn't put 50-some up there.
So as far as the total offense is concerned, all right, you want to know who actually leads the Big Ten in total offense right now, thanks to their drubbing over Syracuse? Maryland.
Oh, shut up! Really?
Yeah, Maryland.
Really?
Yeah, 537 yards a game right now. Ohio State is second. Ohio State is second in the conference right now at 524 yards a game. Nebraska, however, does have the fourth-ranked offense in the Big Ten right now at 490 yards a game. Ohio State, second-ranked defense in the conference right now. Nebraska's like fourth from the bottom. So,
thank you.
Yeah, so
if you look at all of college football, am I looking at the right thing here?
I'm looking
Our
just
defense,
at the Big Ten. But
if you look at all of college football, our defense is third? That ain't right, is it?
Where are you at? I'm on NCAA.org.
I'm on Odd Sharks.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to see what I'm going to bet today. Don't tell anybody.
Actually, according to the Big Ten Conference's website, Ohio State is the second-ranked defense, total defense, second in the Big Ten. Guess where they're at in the country?
Where?
Second. Second-ranked defense in the conference, but they're also the second-ranked defense in the country. Guess who's number one?
Wisconsin.
Yep.
The Badgers.
Freaking Badgers. And so here we go. Here's some stats for you from a national standpoint, Kevin, and let's call it a day. Ohio State, second in the country, total defense at 222 yards a game. Third-ranked scoring offense in the country is Ohio State at 50.
So Ryan Day's not doing that bad of a job.
53 points a game, I would say he's doing pretty good, and Ohio State is fifth overall right now in the country in team passing efficiency. So,
jeez. He's over 70%, right?
Like you said. Yeah, 70%.
70.3%. Oh, come on. This kid, he can sling it. I'm very excited for the season. I don't know if we're as good as LSU. I think LSU is the best team in the country. That's my thought.
Interesting. Better than Alabama.
Yeah, I think so. But they got a better quarterback. I don't think Tua's a very good quarterback. I don't. I think he's an athlete. I think he moves around well. He might be a good college quarterback, I guess.
He's a Tim Tebow. He is a Tim Tebow. Excellent college quarterback, but I could see Joe Burrow possibly making it at the next level. I don't see Tua making it at the next level.
I think Burrow will hold a clipboard. But, yeah, I mean, he will.
Yeah.
But he's a fantastic quarterback. LSU all of a sudden has a passing game. I didn't even know they threw the ball in Louisiana. But all of a sudden they have a pass. I think LSU is the best team in the country. I don't think Alabama is, and I don't think Clemson is. Well,
they haven't had a quarterback at LSU like they've gotten Joe Burrow in how many years? So
what was the kid's name that got drafted by Oakland and just totally shit his pants?
Oh, God. Jamarcus Murray?
Russell. Yeah. That's the last time they had a quarterback. And how long? That was 2008?
Oh, God. That was like 05, 04, 05, something like that. Yeah. So, you know what, Louisiana State? You're welcome for the Ohio boy coming down and saving your ass.
You are welcome. You're welcome. But thank you, Georgia. I appreciate Georgia giving us Mr. Fields.
And you're right. I guess the same could be said. But, dude, real quick, think about it. If Burrow didn't leave, Fields probably wouldn't be here, and Burrow would be leading this offense this year.
I know.
Man.
But 6 of one, half a dozen the other. At least we're there. I mean, two quarterbacks that we've gone after are now two of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see. What is it? The 17th of January? Is that the game? Is that the day?
For what? The national championship? God, is it that late anymore? It probably is.
I think it is. I'd like to see the Buckeyes and the Tigers play a game there. That'd be nice. Have the Tigers beat Clemson. We'll take care of Alabama again, and then we'll see who can.
Them's fighting words, son. Them's fighting words.
That's right.
Well, my brother, thank you, dude, for coming on and doing this. We're going to do it again next week, all right?
All right, sounds great to me. I appreciate you having me, brother.
All right, homeboy, thanks again for coming on. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for downloading another edition of the Buckeye Leafcast, which has been brought to you by Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's not clean until it's Christy clean. Be sure to visit her Facebook page at Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. So, Kev, big game, Nebraska. You're saying 49-17. Big win over the Cornhuskers in Lincoln. I'm going to go ahead and go with. Oh man, I'm gonna go. I always like to keep it close to the vest, man. I'm a little superstitious like that. I think Ohio State can have a big day, big night, if you will, because it is a 7:30 kickoff. I'm gonna go with Ohio State, 38, Nebraska 10, 38-10.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good score.
But I like 49-17 too, because I think Ohio State's firepower can definitely supersede Nebraska's defense.
We're gonna be playing a JV team.
But I think personally, this is going to be the best team so far that Ohio State's played. So I think there's going to be a little bit of adversity.
I'll give you that.
I really thought Cincinnati would have been even the best team that Ohio State may have played up until this point. But I think, that Nebraska's going to be the best team that they will have played. So there's going to be some adversity. But, to your point, maybe maybe like an all-star JV team,
I'll give you that.
So there
We're just going to go to Lincoln and beat up on a bunch of sophomores. It's all right.
That's pretty much it, right?
That's right.
That's pretty much it. All right, brother. Well, hey, man,
brother.
we're going to leave them like we always do. For everybody out there in Buckeye Nation, you, me, let's sign them off. OH.
I-O, baby.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Hang on, Snoopy, Snoopy, hang on. Hang on, Snoopy, Snoopy, hang on. Snoopy lives in a very bad part of town. And everybody, tries to put my Snoopy down. Snoopy, I don't care what your daddy do. 'Cause you know, Snoopy girl, I'm in love with you. And so I say now, hang on, Snoopy, Snoopy, hang on. Hang on, Snoopy, Snoopy, hang on. Snoopy wears a red dress, as old as the hill. But when Snoopy wears that red dress, you know